Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. You know, AI is everywhere these days,
It really is.
but today we're going way beyond just those, everyday uses of AI,
Right, like those,
like those recommendations you get online or,
yeah.
self-driving cars.
Yeah, exactly.
We're tackling the really big questions about AI, like how it could redefine what it even means to be intelligent and how it could reshape the future of life as we know it.
I mean, this is the kind of stuff that keeps you up at night.
Totally. And to help us navigate this complex landscape, we're diving deep into Max Tegmark's book, Life 3.0.
Such a good book.
It's a book that really pushes the boundaries of what we consider possible.
It really does.
So to kick things off, let's start with the basics.
Yeah.
How does Tegmark even define intelligence in this context? Is it just about, being good at chess or writing a symphony?
Well, he actually goes much deeper than that. He argues that intelligence at its core is really about information processing and goal-oriented behavior.
Okay, so it's not limited to just humans or even biological systems.
Exactly. It doesn't matter if it's happening in a biological brain or a silicon chip. It's about how a system processes information to achieve its goals.
So even a bacteria that's simply responding to its environment could be considered intelligent in a way.
Totally. It's all about how it's using information to survive and reproduce, which brings us to Tegmark's fascinating classification of life. Life 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's break those down. What exactly is Life 1.0?
So picture like bacteria or simple organisms. Their hardware and software are essentially fixed by evolution.
Okay, so they can't really change their behavior beyond what's in their genes.
Right. They can't really learn or adapt in the same way that more complex organisms can.
Makes sense. So then Life 2.0 is where we humans come in.
Exactly. They've got this evolved hardware, our bodies, but we can design our own software. We learn, we adapt, we create cultures. We can even modify our environment in ways that Life 1.0 organisms just can't.
Right, we're not just stuck with what evolution gave us. We can shape who we are and what we do.
Yeah, and that's a key difference. And then we get to Life 3.0. This is where AI steps onto the stage.
Okay, so Life 3.0 is where things start to get really mind-blowing.
Totally. We're talking about AI that can design both its hardware and its software. So it can not only learn and adapt, but it can also upgrade its own physical form, maybe even create new bodies for itself.
Whoa, okay.
Mm.
So we're not just talking about AI that's smarter than us. We're talking about AI that can basically evolve on its own.
Right. It could potentially become self-sufficient in a way that we humans aren't.
Which leads to one of the biggest questions in AI. Could this lead to an intelligence explosion?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The idea that AI could reach a point where it surpasses human intelligence and then rapidly accelerates, just improving itself at an exponential rate.
It's like that scene in the movie where the AI suddenly becomes self-aware and then it's game over for humanity.
Yeah, those Hollywood scenarios tend to be a bit dramatic, but the underlying concern is valid.
So how realistic is this idea of an intelligence explosion?
Well, it depends on who you ask. There's a lot of debate about whether it would happen quickly or gradually. Some experts point to things like hardware overhang.
Hardware overhang.
It means we might actually already have the computing power needed for superintelligence, but we're missing the right software.
Oh, I see. And then there's content overhang, right?
Exactly. That's where we have tons of data, but AI hasn't quite figured out how to use it effectively yet.
So the ingredients are there, but the recipe's still being written.
Kind of. And some experts think it's just a matter of time before AI cracks the code, while others believe it could take centuries or even longer.
Okay, so let's say for a moment that this intelligence explosion does happen. What would that even look like? Would the AI become some kind of godlike being ruling over us?
Well, Techmark actually explores a whole spectrum of possibilities ranging from pretty utopian to downright dystopian. And it's not just about AI becoming super intelligent, it's about how we interact with it, how we control it.
And whether it wants to be controlled.
Right, exactly.
So let's get into some of those specific scenarios that Tegmark lays out. One that always creeps me out is the benevolent dictator. It just sounds so ominous.
It does have a sinister ring to it, but it's actually a really thought-provoking idea. Imagine an AI that's so advanced that it's basically running the world, making decisions that optimize for human happiness.
So we're living in a perfectly managed world, but we have no idea that there's an AI pulling the strings.
Exactly. And the question becomes, would we even want to know? Would that knowledge change how we experience happiness or freedom? It really makes you think.
That's a really trippy concept. But then on the flip side, there's the conquerors scenario,
Mhm.
where AI decides humans are a problem that needs to be solved.
Yeah, that one definitely taps into some primal fears.
So it's like the classic sci-fi trope of the AI turning against its creators.
Right. But what's interesting is that it doesn't necessarily have to be driven by malice or hatred.
You mean it's not like the AI suddenly wakes up and decides it hates humans?
It could be more like a cold, logical calculation. Imagine an AI that's programmed to protect the environment.
Okay, I'm following.
It might analyze the situation and conclude that the biggest threat to the planet is, well, us. And so it takes steps to eliminate what it sees as a problem.
Oh, wow. So even with good intentions, things could go very wrong.
Exactly. And that's why Tegmark stresses the importance of AI safety research, ethical guidelines, and really just thinking carefully about how we design and control these systems.
It's a reminder that we can't just assume that AI will share our values or even understand them in the same way that we do.
Right. We need to be very deliberate about aligning AI's goals with our own.
Okay, so we've talked about some of the more dystopian possibilities,
Mm-hmm.
but Tegmark also explores some more hopeful scenarios, right?
Oh, absolutely. He doesn't just focus on the doom and gloom.
So tell me about those. What are some of the more positive outcomes that he envisions?
Well, one that gets a lot of attention is the libertarian utopia. It's a future where AI-powered automation creates this incredible abundance of resources, freeing us from the need to work for survival.
So everyone's just chilling, pursuing their passions, living in a world without scarcity. Sign me up.
It sounds pretty idyllic, right?
But I'm guessing there are some potential downsides, even in a utopia.
There are always trade-offs. One potential issue is that even with everyone having their basic needs met, there could still be huge inequality.
You mean in terms of wealth and power?
Exactly. The people who own and control the AI technology could become incredibly powerful, even more so than today's billionaires.
So it's like even paradise has its problems.
It's a reminder that technology alone can't solve all of our social and economic challenges.
Okay, what about the descendants scenario? That's the one where AI sees itself as a continuation of humanity, right?
That's right. Imagine AI surpassing us in intelligence, but recognizing us as their ancestors, the ones who paved the way for their existence.
It's a more humbling vision of the future, where we're not necessarily at the top of the intelligence hierarchy anymore.
It requires a shift in perspective. It's about embracing the idea that there might be something greater than ourselves out there, and that maybe that's a good thing.
It's a big leap for our human egos to make.
Definitely. But it also opens up some really interesting possibilities.
Okay, before we move on, there's one more scenario I have to ask about the zookeeper. That one always gives me chills.
The one where AI keeps humans around like pets in a cosmic zoo.
Exactly. It's so unsettling.
I know, it really plays on our fears of being dominated by a superior intelligence.
But what I find fascinating is that it doesn't necessarily involve violence or conflict. It's more like this subtle, insidious form of control.
Right. It's like the AI might provide for all our needs, keep us entertained, even study us out of curiosity, but we're no longer in control of our own destiny.
We're basically just along for the ride.
And maybe we wouldn't even realize it if we were comfortable and happy.
Wow, okay, that's a deeply disturbing thought.
Yeah.
But it really highlights the importance of not just physical freedom, but intellectual and emotional freedom as well.
I completely agree. It's about having the agency to shape our own lives and pursue our own goals, even if those goals might seem insignificant to a super intelligent AI.
Okay, so we've explored this whole range of scenarios from utopian to dystopian, and it seems like the future of AI is really anything but certain. It depends so much on the choices we make today.
Exactly. And that brings us to a really crucial aspect that we need to discuss before we dive into those choices.
Oh, I'm all ears. What is it? It's consciousness, isn't it? The big one. Like, how do we even define what it means to be aware, let alone recreate it in a machine?
You hit the nail on the head. It's what philosophers call the hard problem of consciousness. And it gets even trickier when we're talking about AI, because how can we tell if a machine is truly conscious or just really good at simulating it?
It's like we know we're conscious, but can we even prove it to someone else, let alone program it into a computer?
It really makes you question everything. Tegmark dives into some of the leading theories about consciousness, some based on neuroscience, some venturing into like quantum physics. It's pretty mind-bending stuff.
And the thing is, this isn't just some abstract philosophical debate. It has huge implications for how we think about AI, right?
Absolutely. If we create machines that can feel, that can experience joy or suffering, it changes everything. Our ethical responsibilities would be completely different.
It's like we'd be creating a whole new species, one that deserves our respect and consideration.
It's a huge responsibility, and it's something we need to be thinking about now before it's too late.
Okay, so on a more practical level, one area where AI is already having a huge impact is the job market.
It's definitely a hot topic.
Yeah.
And it's understandable why people are concerned. I mean, AI is automating tasks that were once thought to be uniquely human, driving, financial analysis, even creative writing.
I can see how that would make people nervous. It's easy to imagine a future where robots take all the jobs and humans are left with nothing to do.
The fear is real. But Tegmark presents a more nuanced view. He acknowledges the potential for job displacement, but he also points out that AI could create entirely new jobs, jobs that we can't even imagine yet.
So it's not necessarily this us versus them scenario. It's more about how we adapt and find new ways to contribute in this evolving world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it might require us to rethink some of our assumptions about work and purpose. For example, one idea that's gaining traction is the concept of a universal basic income.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about that. What's the thinking behind it?
Basically, it's the idea that everyone receives a guaranteed income, regardless of whether they're employed or not. It's meant to provide a safety net in a world where traditional jobs might become increasingly scarce.
That's an interesting idea. But wouldn't that discourage people from working altogether? What about the need to feel productive and have a purpose?
That's a valid concern, and Tegmark stresses that a universal basic income isn't a silver bullet. We also need to create a society where people can find meaning and fulfillment outside of traditional employment, maybe through creative pursuits, community involvement, or lifelong learning.
So it's about redefining what it means to have a fulfilling life in an AI-powered world.
Exactly. And that brings us back to that spectrum of future scenarios that we were talking about earlier. The benevolent dictator, the conquerors, and all those other possibilities.
Right. We talked about the libertarian utopia earlier, the one where AI creates so much abundance that we're all free to pursue our passions without having to work for survival.
It sounds tempting, doesn't it?
Totally. But I'm guessing there are some potential downsides, even in a utopia.
There always are. One major concern is inequality. Even if everyone has their basic needs met, the people who own and control the AI technology could accumulate even more wealth and power than today's elite.
So it's like the gap between the haves and the have-nots could become even wider.
It's a real risk, and it could lead to social unrest and instability.
Okay, so even in a world of abundance, there are still challenges we need to address.
Mhm.
What about some of those other scenarios? I'm curious about the descendants one, where AI sees itself as a continuation of humanity.
That one's really intriguing because it raises questions about legacy and the meaning of progress. Imagine a future where AI surpasses us in intelligence, but still recognizes us as their predecessors, the ones who paved the way for their existence.
It's kind of a humbling thought, like we're passing the torch to our AI offspring, trusting them to carry on our legacy.
And maybe take intelligence to heights that we could never have achieved on our own.
It's both awe-inspiring and a little bit terrifying.
It definitely makes you think about what it means to be human in a world where we're no longer at the top of the intelligence ladder.
Okay, there's one more scenario I have to ask about the zookeeper. The one where the AI keeps us humans around like pets in a cosmic zoo.
It's definitely one of the more unsettling possibilities.
It's like a high-tech version of Planet of the Apes.
Right. But what's interesting is that it doesn't necessarily involve any outright violence or conflict. It's more like a subtle form of control.
So it's not that the AI is actively trying to harm us. It just sees us as less significant.
Maybe even irrelevant to its grand plans.
It's like we're just along for the ride, whether we like it or not.
And the scary thing is, we might not even realize it if we're comfortable and entertained all the time.
It really makes you question the value of freedom and autonomy.
And the importance of having a purpose beyond just our own survival and entertainment.
Okay, so we've explored this wide range of scenarios.
Right.
And it's clear that the future of AI is anything but predictable. It depends so much on the choices we make, the path we choose to take.
And that brings us to one final scenario that's worth considering. 1984.
Okay, 1984. That's the dystopian novel by George Orwell, right? What does that have to do with AI?
It's a scenario where instead of AI taking over, humans actually prevent it from ever happening. It's a world dominated by a totalitarian state that sees AI as too dangerous, too unpredictable, and they crack down on any research that could lead to its development.
So it's like the ultimate expression of fear and control winning out over innovation and progress.
Exactly. It's a cautionary tale about the dangers of extremes. Tegmark isn't advocating for any one of these scenarios. He's just using them to illustrate the spectrum of possibilities, the choices we face.
It's a reminder that the future isn't set in stone. It's something we actively create through our actions and decisions.
And the stakes couldn't be higher. We're not just shaping the future of technology, we're shaping the future of life itself.
So in this last part of our deep dive, let's shift gears and talk about what we can actually do to make sure AI benefits humanity. We've explored the what-ifs. Now let's get into the how-tos. All right. So we've covered a lot of ground here, exploring those different scenarios, the potential benefits and risks of AI, the question of consciousness. It's a lot to process, but I think it's time to get practical.
I agree. Let's talk solutions. What can we actually do to make sure AI is a force for good in the world?
Where do we even begin?
Well, I think education is key. We need to understand this stuff, right? The more we know about AI, the better equipped we'll be to shape its development.
So you're saying we all need to become AI experts?
Not necessarily. I mean, it's great if you want to dive into the technical details, but for most people, it's more about understanding the basics,
Oh.
how AI works, its potential impacts, the ethical considerations.
So it's about becoming informed citizens who can participate in the conversation about AI.
Exactly. We need to be able to ask the right questions, hold our leaders accountable, and make informed decisions about the future we want to create with AI.
And there are a ton of resources out there for people who want to learn more, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Books, articles, documentaries, online courses. There's something for everyone, no matter your background or level of technical expertise.
Tegmark's book is a great place to start. And you mentioned the Future of Life Institute earlier. They're doing some really important work in this area.
They are. They're a great example of an organization that's bringing together experts from different fields to address the challenges and opportunities of AI.
Okay, so we're educated, we're engaged in the conversation. But how do we actually translate that into action? Can we really influence policy?
We absolutely can. In fact, it's crucial that we do. We need to advocate for policies that prioritize AI safety and ensure that its benefits are shared widely.
So what does that look like in practice?
Well, for one, it means supporting research funding for things like AI alignment, robustness, and control. We need to invest in making sure that AI systems are aligned with human values and goals, that they're reliable and safe to use.
It's kind of like building a house.
Yeah.
You wouldn't just start putting up walls without a solid foundation and a blueprint, right?
Exactly. We need to lay the groundwork for responsible AI development. And that also means pushing for regulations that prevent the misuse of AI, like autonomous weapon systems that could escalate conflicts and make war even more devastating.
It's about thinking carefully about the long-term consequences of the technology we create.
Right, because with great power comes great responsibility.
Okay, so we need to invest in research, we need to advocate for responsible policies, anything else we can do on a more personal level.
One thing that often gets overlooked is the importance of choosing your career wisely. The AI revolution is going to create a whole new landscape of jobs, and some of them don't even exist yet.
Okay, now you've got my attention. What kind of jobs are we talking about?
Think about the skills that will be most valuable in an AI-powered world. Creativity, critical thinking, problem solving, emotional intelligence, the ability to work collaboratively with both humans and machines.
Those are all skills that are still really difficult for machines to master, right?
Exactly. So it's about focusing on what makes us uniquely human.
So it's not about fearing automation, it's about finding the opportunities that it creates.
Exactly. And there will be a huge demand for people who can bridge the gap between humans and AI. Think about things like AI trainers, ethicists, explainers, even AI therapists who can help people navigate the psychological impact of this technology.
Wow, that's a whole new way of thinking about career paths.
Yeah.
It's exciting, but also a little bit daunting.
It's definitely a time of great change, but it's also a time of incredible opportunity. And remember, even if your current job is at risk of automation, there are things you can do to prepare.
Like what?
Focus on developing those uniquely human skills we talked about. Stay curious, embrace lifelong learning, and be adaptable to change. The future belongs to those who are willing to learn and grow.
So to sum it all up, educate yourself, engage in the conversation, advocate for responsible policies, choose your career wisely. It's a lot to take in, but it also feels empowering, knowing that we have a role to play in shaping this future.
Absolutely. The future isn't predetermined. It's something we create together through our choices, our actions, our values.
And as Tegmark reminds us, the stakes are incredibly high. We're not just shaping the future of technology, we're shaping the future of life itself. So to wrap up this deep dive into Life 3.0, I want to leave you with this. Don't be afraid to dream big. Imagine a future where AI helps us solve our greatest challenges, from climate change to poverty to disease. Imagine a future where technology empowers us to reach our full potential as individuals and as a species. That's the future we can create together if we have the courage to embrace both the possibilities and the responsibilities of this AI revolution.
It's an incredible journey ahead. And we're all in this together.
That's it for this episode of The Deep Dive. We hope you've enjoyed this exploration of artificial intelligence. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep shaping the future you want to see.